Okay, well, welcome to another episode of the Leadership Launchpad's Pick and Mix podcast. Um, wow, I am super chuffed that I've got this lady on today. It's Siobhan Meredith, and off air, I was talking to Siobhan that there's something about her presence online, or I don't know what it is, but it's made me feel like we're best mates and that we know each other really well. And I think we've only met each other once. Yeah, there you go. Kudos to you, Siobhan. There's something about you that makes people feel like they connect. So thanks for coming on. We're going to go through the normal sort of, sequence of things that you've chosen ahead of time, which will give us a bit of a sense of who you are behind all the things that we see online and all the articles and books and all that sort of stuff. So tell us a little bit about what your current role is, who it's for, and then kind of a little bit of background about how you got there.
Yeah, cool. Oh, thanks, Chris, and thanks for having me today. I'm really excited. So, my current role, I've got two roles actually at the moment. So, my main role is Executive Director of Education for the TEDRAG Trust. So, that's a family of schools that are in Plymouth and Devon and all sort of Exeter and then the surrounding area, which is really cool. I live in Plymouth, so it's really nice to be working with schools that are close to where I grew up as well. And then my other job is currently a secondment for 2 days a week to the Department for Education as one of the South West Region's RISE advisors, which is different and really exciting. And I love everything to do with school improvement. And I think that has just been a really big part of my career. Like from the office and NQT, I ended up in a school that went into special measures for the second time in 18 months. Like, it was a really poor school. So I think that probably kickstarted that love of school improvement and just making sure that children go to really great schools. So yeah, it's really cool what I get to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, what about before? So, is it secondary trained or primary or?
Primary, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I before I worked full time for TEDRAG, I was the head teacher of Marine Academy Primary in Plymouth, which was a free school that opened in 2013. I joined there as an assistant head teacher and then became a head teacher in 2014.
And through your time, kind of, in the primary, have you got a specialism or did you develop a specialism?
Oh, so I always thought I was going to be a year six teacher because there's something with my like year six teachers are proper cool
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
right? Yeah, they're really cool. And I finished my course, applied for jobs, and I did get one for the September after I finished in the July, but it took 8 interviews to get a job.
Wow.
So I never thought I was going to get a job. I was just like churning out all these interviews, thinking, "What am I doing?" And side note, somebody actually didn't give me a job because they told me I was too Plymouth.
Shut up.
I don't know what that means. I guess it was a bit that I'm a bit of a Janna, but yeah, I was too Plymouth, so I couldn't go and work in a little village outside of Plymouth.
Love that.
But when I did get my first job, which I got like right at the end of July, so by then I was going to take anything. I actually got a job at teaching a reception class, and
Okay.
I thought I have no idea what this is because I knew it was a whole different curriculum that I'd never looked at throughout my training, and that's what I kind of rocked up to do. But then within the first half term, the nursery manager went off long-term sick, never came back. And I got moved to run the nursery. So I only did a 3-year BEd. So I was 21 and I have ended up teaching 3 and 4 year olds, not a clue what I'm supposed to do with them. One child on my first day in nursery had what I can only liken to the advert on TV where they talk about a poo nanny.
Right.
I had no clue what to do with that. I was reading a story that has happened in the corner of the classroom. The nursery nurse just put a chair over it and went, "I'll sort it out later."
Really?
So thank God. So yeah, that's when my career started anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, two things jumped to mind straight away. That someone the other day, I can't remember who it was, who was talking about some of the weaknesses of maybe some of the national leadership programs, and they basically said they don't teach you how to clear up poo. You know,
No.
I was like, well, they wouldn't, but yeah, I understand, it's slightly not as contextual. And then the other thing that makes me laugh is, of course, I'm secondary trained, but I spend tons and tons of time now in primary schools. And it started off that I would feel inferior in year six. I'd go into a year six maths lesson, I think, but it's getting worse because the standards are getting higher. I'm feeling more and more insecure lower down the school, So now I'm at like year three, and I'm going and thinking, I've not got a clue what a fronted adverbial is. Like, what? What's happening? I got all the titles and all the badges and all the awards, but yeah, wow. Yeah, anyway, I'm completely in love with primary at the moment. Wicked.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's it. Like, I love early years now, so that's the
yeah, of
thing. I
course you
think,
are. Yeah.
yeah, and that's it. Like starting my career there just made me really love it, and that's why, like, it's part of the stuff that I've been doing with the DFE for Rise. One of the things that I've looked at is sort of the local priority of early years for us and the reception year
Amazing.
quality, and that is just properly cool that I get to do that now. And yeah,
So good.
so
I always think about what takeaways people will take from these podcasts, and hope they're going to be some sort of highly intellectual sort of things, and I'm thinking already I can hear someone saying, "Well, I can do it." Siobhan Meredith didn't. She had 8 interviews and she didn't get her first job. Look at her now. But yeah, there we go. Okay, amazing. So let's get sort of, I guess, stuck into your first ignition points. So for those that are new to the podcast, the idea is that these are events that have happened in people's lives that have affected them in some way, that they've been transformed. So when you wrote it on the form, you put school improvement team visit. So tell us a bit about why that was an ignition point.
yeah, so I after my first job, where it went into special measures, I stayed there for a little while, and well, not actually that long really. Did a journey from special measures to good, and I then left that school to become an assistant head teacher way sooner than I should have done. Okay. Like definitely way sooner. And so I actually took up post as an assistant head teacher at the age of 24 in a school in Cornwall. And I did it because basically the advert was everything that I was like, well, I can do. I read an advert that said, can you come and lead Key Stage 1? Can you teach phonics well? And have you had a bit of leadership experience? Was basically what it said. By this point, I'd already covered as a Senko. So I was like, I have had whole school leadership experience. I'm just going to go for it and see. I got this job. It was a school in Notice to Improve. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do the journey all over again. Like, I love school improvement. How fun is this going to be? And so I went, and I was originally told I wasn't going to have a class, and which was weird for me. I was just going to do PPA cover. They negotiated that I started early. So I started after the May half term. So I went in the beginning of June. I rocked up on the Monday, and head teacher said to me, oh, I know I said you weren't going to have a class, but the year 1-2 teacher's off. So I'm going to need you to go and teach year 1-2. So I was like, okay, fine. So that's it. So I'm teaching year 1-2. Yeah. Well, there's part of me that was like, now I was in a school that had been on that journey and had all these wonderful consistencies. Like, there were planning templates, there was your timetable, there were all of these things. So my first question was like, is there any planning? No. Is there a planning template? No. What do I need to teach? Up to you.
Oh, wow.
And then it was like, but there was wake and shake at 9 o'clock every day. So that was the thing. But then, so that is like day 1. On day 3, I get a knock on my classroom door first thing in the morning as I'm getting ready. That was like, oh, Cornwall School Improvement Team are here today. And I was like, right. And they were like, yeah. So they're doing their like monitoring visit because we're obviously in category. Okay. And then they were like, we need you to go and observe with them the rest of like the key stage and early years. And I was like, okay, fine, like that'll be okay. And I was the key stage 1 lead, right? But I'm only in my first couple of days there. So I, at this point, was already this very young and naive leader that was not ready to be an assistant head teacher. I was thinking, I could do some lesson observations. This is fine. I've started the lesson observations, and a part of me has died inside because some of it was the worst teaching I'd ever seen. And I thought, oh, like this is big. Like this is really big. And the school improvement advisor turns to me and was like, "Yeah, it's not very good, is it?" And I was like, "No." They were like, "Yeah, you're going to have to tell them that."
Oh,
And I think for me, I mean, now looking back, I think
yeah,
I'd be like, "Well, no, you're the people visiting."
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
come on now. But yeah, they were like, "You're going to need to do it." And so I had to give some really, really harsh feedback. And this was in the time where people used to say to you, like, sandwich your feedback.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I just remember thinking, right, okay, I'm going to go with positive. Then I'm going to say, like, oh, but actually, like, I'm going to kind of put it back to like maybe the planning because I know that we need to fix that. And then I'm going to end with a positive and it'll be okay. So I did that. But the team, like, already hated me. They hated me even more after that. And that just for me started what was kind of the 6 most awful weeks of my whole career of just pure like that people just didn't like me. And we talk a lot now about, oh, would you prefer to be liked or respected?
Yeah,
What is most important? And
yeah,
I have this real inner thing that I like to be liked.
yeah. Me too.
I definitely do. And back then, I like now I'm just no, like I wasn't liked. I definitely wasn't particularly respected. And so it ended up getting to a point where I'd asked the team to do something, which was around like timetables. I think that like we'd introduced a new timetable and they weren't sticking to them. They were just
Right.
doing their own thing still. And I remember just walking in and just looking at them and going, will you just do what I've asked you to do? Like, you are really doing my head in now. You've just got to do it. And I just walked out. So it's like the worst form of leadership I ever could have delivered. And then I finished for the summer and it was a 30-minute drive back to home. And I literally remember crying the whole way home, going home and being like, I can't go back there in September. Don't make me go back. But for me, I think that was an inflection point from that visit into so many things that I definitely should have handled differently, but
Okay.
definitely was like, it showed me like, no, you wanted to be a senior leader. Now you've got to act like one and you've got to find your way.
Yeah, that's
So
so
yeah.
interesting. And again, kudos to you for, recognizing the learning that comes from doing things wrong. I mean, that's a thing that a lot of leaders, either won't allow themselves to do or don't kind of value that. I mean, I guess there's a link to cognitive science, isn't there? There's that idea that, you know, um, things get really hardwired if there's an emotional link to them. I guess when we do things wrong, we feel quite strongly about that. So that's probably why they should stick in our minds.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny, and I'm totally with you on that whole. Yeah, I mean, I've yet to find one of those what they call them dichotomies that actually works. Liked, respected. Well, and I find myself being like, not that I go to dinner parties, but the most boring dinner party guest ever because they go, "Which one, Chris? Do we set or not set?" Well, it depends.
Yeah.
Which leadership style? Visionary or it depends. It's like, oh god, don't tell me.
Very good to party guests. Like I can talk loads about my dog.
Okay. What's his
Pardon?
he or she?
Hey.
Oh,
Yeah.
name
Watson.
Watson.
Yeah. The cat is called Sherlock. So I've got Sherlock. Sherlock came first.
Right. I love
And then we
that.
needed a Watson.
That's brilliant. There we go. Right then. Well, that's a great ignition point. And again, I think for those that are listening, looking for key takeaways, don't I guess don't lose the opportunity to reflect on weaknesses or failures and things like that because there's a ton of learning in it. Um, and um, be prepared before you take the job. But I don't think any of us have ever done that, so forget it. Right, let's get stuck into your first launch pad. And so I'll just share the slide so everyone can see that. So this one I'm really excited about because it was it was linked to some of the reading I was doing around. Well, it was about like almost like psychological safety, and I'd done all the sort of standard reading, Amy Edmondson and all that stuff, and then I was tripped over some things where they were talking about the way that how protective leaders are of certain things. And the more kind of protective you are, the less space you leave for other things. So basically, the launchpad's called Holding Things Lightly. And the tagline I wrote was kind of leading with tentativeness is a key approach for those wishing to build psychological safety and open communication. And the graphic, if you're not watching this, has a sort of a hand. And some of the things that I think we should probably present to other people with an open hand. So sort of metaphorically, like you're not holding on to them super tightly, you are provisionally offering them up. The first one being our ideas, and it's super important as a leader that you do, offer your ideas up as unfinished or imperfect, because unless you've got loads and loads of psychological safety, people will just go, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. And then potentially and dangerously behind your back, they'll think it's a terrible idea. And so that's not great. The other one is control. I mean, I think we all have various relationships with control. I have an unhealthy relationship with the need for control. And so, again, holding that as lightly as you can without obviously damaging outputs. I think the failures thing we just spoke about, and when we talk about holding failures lightly, we recognize them, accept them, acknowledge our role in them, kind of explore the reasons for them, and then move on. It's holding it lightly in that you don't let it sit with you for too long. Short-term parking is something I use. Don't not let it park, but just give it a short burst. Opinions, I think most of us have kind of recognized that different people have different opinions, and actually there's some real strength in finding other people with different opinions, because that's, I guess, how you grow, as much as it might be quite painful. Certainly for things like teaching and learning, for me and you, that's bread and butter, but you do have to kind of accept that other people will feel differently about what effective teaching and learning is, and that's based on their experience and their training. And again, the skillfulness for me and you is being able to offer your opinion, but in a way that does open up for people to go, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll think about that. Status, I think, again, I mean, I need to get myself a fancy title as well. I'm going to speak to my CEO about that. But again, I'm sure you do, but we have to hold our levels of status, don't we, lightly. We've had opportunities that other people may have not had. We've had, time and all that sort of stuff. I think once you sort of buy into your own status, you're probably on a bit of a bad road there. I think staff appreciate it. I mean, they want leaders to make decisions and lead, but if you can do it in a collaborative, personal way, then you're on to a winner. I think the last one, again, is sort of opposite to failures, really, that we probably shouldn't believe our own hype either. We take our successes lightly, in that, yes, you were successful, and then, right, let's move again, because tomorrow you might not be. And then the rest of the launchpad's a bit of a blurb, so I won't read this out, but it just pushes it towards that idea that we should be learning from every kind of situation. We should accept kind of cognitive discomfort, and that, we're looking to be changed. Value in diversity, delegating where appropriate, really empowering other people, not just to do things in their own way, but to think about things in their own way. And then that idea of open communication, which I think we always knew that it was important, but I think some of the psychological safety work has made it, like, and Brene Brown and that sort of thing, has made it really, like, quite scary how limited your effectiveness and your improvement journey will be if you're not getting the truth. And we as leaders have to create an environment where people do feel they can kind of create the truth. Anyway, why did this one resonate with you?
Do you know what? It just really resonated with me in the sense of, as a head teacher, kind of what did I learn and how did I learn to lead? So
Yeah.
actually, as I did that journey as an assistant head teacher, and then we'll talk a bit later about kind of how I moved from there and became a head teacher. But one of kind of like my best times, I think, in my career so far have been when I had my senior leadership team at MAP, and we had that in the sense that the others were happy to challenge, and there was never a leadership team meeting where I just would talk at them and that they would all be saying like, yeah, okay, we're going to go and do that. There would
Yeah.
always be this kind of level of pushback, and we talked a lot in my kind of final year of full-time headship around that we always wanted to be 1% better.
Ooh,
So
nice.
I listened to Mufti Hamid talk once from Star, and he talked about how everything needed to be iteratively better. So you might, and he gave an example like you might write a letter to parents one year for Sports Day. The next year, look at that letter and be like, how do I just make it that 1% better? And that's what we did. And like for us, that's how we were like, we kept Marine Academy kind of at the top of the game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, holding things lightly really made me think of that. But then when I then began to kind of exit headship, and obviously Marine Academy is a school within the TEDRAG Trust. So I was leaving headship, leaving my school, but staying within our trust. And at that point that I really had to think about actually how am I handing this over? And
Yeah.
what does delegation look like? And like this school isn't all about me. And I
Yeah.
think that was where kind of that bit around like, oh no, we are going to leave ego at the door now, Siobhan. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't about you. You've got two other people, because two people stepped up as co-head teachers, who were more than ready for headship and like didn't need me, but also needed to be empowered to not be me.
Yeah.
Like, because
So
like I definitely wasn't the best head teacher, like we've all got our own quirks
yeah.
and ways of doing things. So definitely there was that for me when I read this launchpad around kind of like that, being able to empower others, being able to delegate, but also what I like to think I've been quite good at and that I've definitely learned over kind of my leadership career is the fact that I will have ideas in my head. They will take a while to formulate.
Right.
So, like, if I'm in a meeting and lots of things are being talked about and it's new to me, I won't give you my thoughts straight away.
Yeah.
Like, I'm quite an intrinsic thinker. I'm not extrinsic in that way. Um, so what's been important for me is kind of learning how others think and
Yeah.
knowing that actually I'm not going to give strong ideas, but equally the people around my table, I don't want to give strong ideas right now because I want us all to feel empowered to be able to give our ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the psychological safety bit comes in. Do you
Does.
know that kind of sense of like, oh no, we're all going to listen to each other's ideas now, and that we can have that rumble. Actually, if we are challenging, we're not doing it to be difficult. Like, we are doing it because we want the absolute best for our children. And your further study on the page where you talk about emotional intelligence, one of the best things that of CPD that I've done kind of in recent years has been with Yale University. I learned about the ruler approach, and that basically looks at emotional intelligence, but it
Okay.
starts with the team.
Right.
And then you think about actually, how am I going to teach this to children?
Yeah.
And that definitely has been revolutionary to me, like in my life in general, around like understanding my own emotions and actually, do I feel tired right now? Or
Yeah.
actually, is it more that I'm kind of low energy and therefore like there's something else, like I've got an unpleasant feeling that I would normally hook on being tired, but actually it's not that. And so
Right.
it's really interesting, and us knowing that across our teams, I think is really important, because it's really difficult if you are having that bit of a rumble and providing challenge when actually somebody isn't in a really great emotional state. So it's somebody being able to be empowered to be able to say like, I'm not in this place right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this like for me as a launchpad like opened up lots of things actually that really made me think about myself as a leader, but also when I am like running meetings, how I want people to feel and how I want them to be engaged and just to feel empowered. So yeah.
And so this thing you did, so it was at Yale University on an online course, I
Yeah, it
guess.
was online last summer. Yeah, three of us did it from our trust,
Right.
and it was just really, it was so cool.
What was it
So,
called again?
so yeah, it's called Ruler, and Ruler is an acronym.
Like a ruler. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, well, there we
yeah,
go. That's your first thing to Google, people. As soon as that's what I'll be doing as soon as I get off of here. The ruler
yeah.
of Dutch from Yale.
It's really cool. And then we've done it. So then what we've done this year is we've trained school teams on it. And then September inset, we are going to launch the emotional literacy curriculum across our primary schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at watch out for that then, definitely. Okay, brilliant. Wow. Let's keep moving on. Let's get some more good stuff. So this next fast friends question you chose was, what's your most treasured memory? Wow.
Yeah. So I'm actually reading a book at the moment. So and I don't know if you have you read the series of When the Coffee Gets Cold?
No.
No, okay. It's a really good book, but basically it was written in Japanese and then it's been translated to English, and it's set in a cafe in Tokyo where you have your cup of coffee and you can go back in time basically. And you can choose any moment in your life to go back to,
Cool.
which is really cool, right? But then there's a similar writer that's done something similar called The Lantern of Lost Memories. And The Lantern of Lost Memories, basically what happens is when you die, you go to like a holding space. And the first part of the book, I'm not giving anything away, but a lady is 91 years old. And all of these boxes get brought in. And they say to her, there are 91 years worth of photos here that reflect your memories. You can choose one for every year, and it will go into the Lantern of Lost Memories. And then basically she'll watch that lantern spin and it will show the memories of her
Forever.
life. Yeah. So like when you asked this question, I thought, oh, like I could have so many memories that I feel so fond about, right? And then when I think about early memories, I think, oh, are they actual memories or are they photographs that I've seen and that I remember, right? So one of my like earliest memories that I'm definitely very fond of, and there's going to be a theme here with animals because I've already referenced my dog, but when I grew up, I had a cat. And my cat was called Smudge. And I used to go to bed, and Smudge used to sneak in and would sleep on my pillow.
Okay.
And Smudge would literally like wrap in herself like around my head, and I would wake up and Smudge would be like grooming me a little bit, and it was really cute. It was like this really cute cat. But so that's definitely one of my earliest and like quite fond memories. But my fondest is I grew up with my grandparents, and I always like remember, and this is something that I know like intrinsically isn't that I just looked at a photo, but is from my granddad used to walk me to play school.
Okay.
My gran worked part-time at Tesco, so she would be off at work in the mornings and I would go to play school in the mornings. So like as a 3-year-old, my granddad would walk me like the 15-minute walk to there. I would go to play school, and then after play school he would walk me like the long way home so I could go past the corner shop where he
Okay.
would give me 20p and
Nice.
I could get sweets. And I always remembered like wrestling with the fact that I felt sorry for the fruit salads if I didn't get the equal number. Right? So I used to justify it in that I would spend 15p on blackjacks because they were my favourite. And my granddad liked blackjack, so I'd share with him. And then 5p on fruit salads. I didn't even really like fruit salads, but I just felt that I needed to still buy some, which is bizarre. So yeah, I used to have my paper bag and my 20 sweets with my 20p. And that is a really fond memory for me because, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really special.
And then your grandparents still around?
My gran is, but not my granddad.
Son.
Yeah. I took my gran out for lunch yesterday and a
Yeah.
pedicure. So yeah, that was
Oh,
nice.
nice. That's so funny. And again, you bringing up even just that, like blackjacks and fruit salads makes me, yeah. I remember those little. They used to have the bags were like a certain, like almost like an off white, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and then they like spin them so they were slightly twisted at the top.
Yeah.
It's funny how that stuff comes back.
Yeah, when we got married, I was insistent that we needed like a little sweet cart for exactly that. Like I wanted the old fashioned like penny
Yeah,
sweets
yeah,
in
yeah.
the paper bags.
That is so cool. That is so cool. What do you think? Was it because was that experience of getting the sweets? Do you remember how you felt during that? Why is it such a treasured memory? Do you think?
Yeah, I just think it was maybe like the whole experience, which is like being with Grandad. Like he would come with the dog. We had a dog at the time called Whiskey, and so Grandad would like walk the dog with me, like to go and like pick me up and drop me
Yeah,
off, and then we would do that. And
yeah,
yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just I remember it just being like really wholesome and nice.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
funny. I wonder whether grandparents and us whether they knew they were building
Mm,
those memories, because that's an interesting idea, isn't it? Like, if we know, like, should we be purposefully building memories with our
yeah.
kids or people we work with? Um, it's interesting from a leadership point of view because it's quite a tricky time. There's a lot of stress. People have got no time, and the danger is that people don't find time to have those. Again, I used to work with David Carter. He was my kind of boss when I was at my first secondary school, and I was only talking with someone the other day how we used to have a Christmas party, and it was. I don't think we didn't know any. They didn't know any different, but effectively it was all paid for as well, which again I didn't even think of. I just that's what happens, and it was the greatest thing because everybody would go, and we'd all have like tuxedos. I mean, we're Bristol, like so it's not posh, but like, everyone would dig out some tuxedo or go to a charity shop and buy one. But it sticks in my mind as one of my favourite memories, and I wanted to. David's going to come on the podcast at some point. I wonder if I should tag him on for it. But I always wanted to ask him, like, did you do that on purpose? Like, did you? I know that probably money was probably tight back then, but did he in his head think, hang on a minute, this little bit of investment is worth all that? I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really cool. No, like it makes me think a little bit of the book Legacy by James Kerr. One of the things that definitely as a head teacher that I really thought about was kind of the message around where they talk about the All Blacks wearing that jersey and
Yeah.
what that means when you're in that jersey. And off the back of that, we kind of created what we then or we even now know as like hashtag Team Marine.
Right.
So like in terms of like the hoodies that I would get the teams wear,
Yeah.
um yeah, we would then make sure that they had hashtag Team Marine written on the back of them. And so now even when like the head teacher now like will thank the team, George will be like, oh what a team, like hashtag Team Marine. and
Yeah.
and when you like create that kind of that real kind of sense of like, oh yes. And I
Yeah.
think it's that like feeling of like warmth and I guess that security, that
Yeah.
psychological safety,
Belonging.
all of
All
that.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's a call to action for leaders, I suppose, listening to this is, you know, what memories are you making for your staff? What would you want them to say in retirement when they catch up with each other about their time at your school? Because you don't want to leave it to chance if you can. You should create some. Maybe we should get some fruit salads and blackjacks in. We're going to probably talk about this later, but is there going to be fruit salads and blackjacks at TED Fest?
Oh, I think there needs to be. Definitely needs to
You've got to
be.
hear about this event that Siobhan's planning. We'll talk about it at the end. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to move on to your second ignition point. And this one, again, you've sort of alluded to, is called headship.
Yeah,
Tell us about
yeah,
that.
I will. Yes. So I did go back in the September, having had the most
Oh, that's good. Everyone was waiting.
terrible like meltdown. I did go back, but you know what? I only went back for a year. Because during that year, in Plymouth had that a school was going to be open. So Marine Academy Primary, free school was due to open, and they equally were advertising for an assistant head teacher, but one that would deputise in the executive head teacher's absence. So same money and all of that. I moved back to work in Plymouth and went to work at Marine Academy Primary, which was just joyous and mental. Like we spent the summer holiday painting an old like 1930s humanities block that were used to be part of the secondary school on campus, so that we could get ready to move in the 26 reception children that had chosen our school. My granddad came to help. Like, I remember me and my granddad like painting, doing all of that. Like, it was just really fun, just crazy. But after a year, because the executive head teacher was seconded part-time, he was to go, and then they said they needed a full-time head teacher. And I, at this point, was 26, so like, again, not very old. And but I just had this real sense of like, I've created this school from scratch. I've written all of the policies. Like, I've been part of this team. If I'm ever going to be a head teacher, because if you asked me before, I would have said not for me. Like, no. I just thought, I've got to go for it. I've just got to do it. And that's what happened. And so, yeah, at the age of 27, I became the head teacher of Marine Academy Primary.
Yeah.
And I think the ignition point for me there was like, there was a lot of fuss, not when I got the job, not when I started the job, but a month or two into the job, when the school was inspected and was given outstanding in every area. Because then it became first free school in the Southwest to be graded as outstanding, the youngest head teacher in the country.
That's
an outstanding school. Just the storm that came up. Like, I had the Sun asking me for interviews. I did do the one with the Times.
Okay, well, of course.
My granddad, for the first time in his life, went and bought a copy of the Times.
Amazing.
Because I was like in it. Just the whole thing's just really crazy. And I just thought, like, I'm just here to do a really good job. Like, that's just what I want to do. And what we had were like two camps of people being like, but she's got no life experience, she's really young, what does she know? She clearly didn't deserve it, how has she ended up getting it? Into like, it's clearly a really good school. Like, and you mentioned David Carter earlier, and like, so David at that point, as regional schools commissioner, like, he asked me to go and present to other leaders, especially free school leaders, who were saying, like, it is impossible for a free school to be outstanding because it's so new. Right. And I remember him saying to me, like, can you please just talk to them, and you've just got to say to them, like, no, it is, I've done it. And but I guess for me, it's that thing around, like, I'm a perfectionist. Like, people say they're a perfectionist, but like, I get really emotional if things aren't perfect. Like, I really do. And I have to have a word with myself sometimes to be like, right, let it go now. Like, you can let some stuff go. But I'm a real perfectionist. And actually, like I said to you earlier, I like to be liked. So when there were people that were saying she doesn't deserve it, like, it clearly, like, is not all her, she's too young, she doesn't know, that for me actually just drove me to be like, I'm going to prove you all wrong now. And that is what my plan is. So, and I think that for me definitely spurred me on in my career to be like, no, we're going to go and do it. And I am going to almost like prove the haters. Like, I mean, and there were people, right? There was the local paper did a story on me, and people commented being like, she's got really bad hair. And I remember being like,
I love all that sort of stuff, as in, really, that's what you took from that whole,
It's like, great. But so no, so it's a bit of a funny one, but and it was, I just,
what a great ignition point that is. And again, I think that's another interesting link with what we talked about before in terms of learning from failure, but also learning from negativity. Like, if you're in leadership, there's a chance that you are going to experience some negativity, either inside your own organization or outside, and negative things are going to happen, and so on and so on. And if you can embrace them a bit and explore them, I suppose there is some learning in it. And whether you can turn that to your advantage, like you said, and create an ignition point for motivation and stuff like that. The other one that springs to mind, because I feel a bit like, you in sort of, and it's weird, isn't it? It's, you have to be secret about being a perfectionist nowadays, because you're not allowed, are you? Like a taboo. And I think everybody who would be termed perfectionist recognizes that there isn't such thing as perfection. But I think what you said earlier about 1% better is kind of where I am, where I there's always room for improvement, and I want to do that. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but and I won't show anyone because that would be I'd have to put a PG rating on the thing, right? But there's a running joke. When I was midlife crisis, I had like a tattoo done on my chest, very bonkers. And it came. I was when I was. I mentioned to Siobhan offline that I did a lot of summer camps in America. I did 7 summers and met some of my kind of greatest friends, who are still friends now. And I was very susceptible at that age to. I was reading Covey and all lots of things. The Americans love all that slogan stuff, and these kids they would always wear like the hoodies and stuff from there, a bit like your kind of hashtag team. They'd have their college, or their high schools, and I remember this one, and it said like something like Baylor Wrestling. We are the difference between acceptable and exceptional. And I thought, oh yeah, I like that. I'll steal that. At some point, sort of thing. And I didn't do anything of it for 20 years later. And then I sort of thought, what message would I want to constantly live? And it's not a particularly relaxing way to live, but it fires me up all the time about like everybody else. I tend to when I'm tired or that'll do, that's all right, that's enough, and then another side comes out and says, come on, what I'm now going to tell myself is 1% better. Just make it 1% better. Brilliant. Well, that is.
It makes me think, Chris,
Go
about on Saturday I went to the London Stadium to watch the
Oh yeah.
Diamond League Athletics. But as I was leaving, there is a UCL building, and they've got a tagline that says UCL disruptive thinking since 1826.
Oh,
And I
right.
was like, I liked that. Doing
Yeah.
that whole yes, I do want to be a disruptor in this. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
And yeah, be a disruptor and be disrupted.
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
again we talked about find people who don't agree with you. I regularly reference a lady in my school improvement team who is not. I mean, she's a fan of mine personally, but she's not a fan of me professionally. She thinks a lot of the stuff I do is kind of style over substance and all that sort of stuff. And so I genuinely go to her for some critical feedback because I
Mm.
know that she's not going to kind of, smooth my ego or just say, yeah, oh, it looks great, just to get out of the conversation. So, yeah, so that's funny. Okay, let's move into the second kind of launch pad then, because this one, again, is interesting. And when I thought about this one, I mean, when we think about lots of people ask me quite regularly, I don't know. Can you define leadership as quickly, as simply as possible? Or they'll say things like, "Oh, Chris, I don't know much about leadership. What is it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I mean, how long have you got?" And also, like, I don't think we've even agreed what it is, you know. But one of the things I suppose that is consistent within leadership is taking people somewhere new. That idea of, leaders lead, hopefully take people with them. And usually that involves implementation. And so I started kicking around this idea about implementation and why do some things work and some things don't. And there's the obvious thing around whether or not you follow the right process or almost looking at kind of what are the steps of implementation where it might have gone wrong. But I started kicking around this idea that there may be some other reasons. So I started thinking, is there something about kind of the thing itself that makes it easier or harder to implement? And are there obviously external or extraneous factors? And so one of the first things I thought about was this idea of um, is it almost controllable? Can you plan for it, or does it need to be responsive? So when we think about kind of teaching, typically adaptation or what you want to old money differentiation is one of the trickiest things to get right. because you can't always plan for it. I mean, we know if students have got established needs, then we can put things in place because we know about them. But that in the moment responsiveness is unbelievably complex. And so there's no doubt that you'll be good or not so good. So I was thinking about that, if you're trying to implement things in your school, is there an opportunity for you to put systems in place, or can you plan for it? Then I started thinking about, quickly went on to this idea of triggers, because when you read a lot of stuff about habits, they talk about like the components of a habit, and the first one being a trigger. That there's an event that causes the habit to be put in place. I don't know, what would it be like? It's nighttime, so you brush your teeth, or there's a trigger to it. A lot of times, if we want things to be done consistently by people, we can't allow that to be solely their, up to them. Because if you've got 100 staff, there's a chance that, they'll do it slightly differently, or they will remember to do it or not remember to do it. So what is sort of this idea of, is there a trigger that you could put in that causes the thing to work? And again, off the back of that, I mean, this idea of habit formation, we tend to repeat the things that are enjoyable, or repeat the things that, give us what we need. And so again, we as leaders need to remember that idea of recognizing, praising, and rewarding is useful. But also, if we can sort of locate the reward for teachers or leaders, then that will help them think, oh, that is worth doing. And so I was thinking about that. And actually, at the time, I was desperately trying to. To be honest, I failed, which is a bit of coaching for me. But I'm rubbish at stretching, and that sounds ridiculous. But I do tons and tons of exercise, and I don't stretch. And every morning, when I struggle out of bed, I think I need to do more stretching, and then I don't. I don't really understand what the problem is. I started reading this book, and it said about triggers and rewards and things like that. And so I've ended up, I love doing like Duolingo, like the sort of learning languages and stuff. I think it's some sort of dopamine, like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, so now I've started, I can only do my Duolingo while I'm stretching. And I mean, I don't know. But what I've done is I've created, and I do it in the morning, and it's the first thing I do before I go to the gym, blah, blah, blah. And so I've almost kind of made it plannable. I've created a trigger, and I've created a reward, which hopefully will help me implement my stretching. I don't know, I left it a bit too late. So then the other thing I started thinking about was, okay, well, what about the external things? Well, this is a leadership problem, isn't it? That if people aren't doing things right, it might be that they don't understand how to do them right. And that's probably a leadership thing. When we talk about, oh, your feedback's not great, talk to me about your understanding of feedback, and then they don't understand feedback, you've got to look in the mirror and think, hang on a minute, I'm the leader of PD. Maybe that's my job. And I started thinking about the environment, which is an obvious one, I suppose. I get a little bit frustrated at the moment where there's not as much, I don't think, acknowledgement of the classroom environment that exists for teachers to be amazing in, like it's almost like learning's not great, teacher, and I think, well, I'm on paper a pretty damn good teacher, but if you put me in a difficult environment, suddenly I'm not as good. I haven't changed, but it's changed. And so I think that's interesting as leaders to look a bit deeper about the conditions. And I suppose you could even go as far as kind of culture and stuff. But and then the other bit, which I think we're very time poor, aren't we, in teaching? It might be outside of teaching as well, but a lot of times these things fail just because we haven't resourced them enough. We haven't given them enough time. We haven't given them enough equipment or money and things like that. Anyway, so the obvious thing to finish was this idea of, okay, Chris, what might we need for implementation as well as sort of stuff. And I got obsessed with this idea of theory of change, which I'm sure people are into. But again, Google that because they are fascinating and ridiculously difficult to create. They take hours, days to do a good one. Scaffolds, again, one of the things I talk about when we do coach training in our trust, people feel like, and I learned this the hard way, they feel like they need to be able to go in, do it perfectly without any support. And I say to them, I genuinely would recommend you have the coaching model in front of you when you're coaching someone. It'll be awkward. We just got to put it out there and just say, look, I'm just starting on this, blah, blah, blah. So again, I think we should lean into scaffolds a bit more. Triggers we've talked about, and then just monitoring. But why did this resonate with you?
Yeah, I think this resonated with me on two levels. The first was because, and you've talked about coaching, but one of my favorite things about my job is instructional coaching and leading on coaching and being able, I've had the privilege of still being able to coach two teachers this year. And
Nice.
just everything you've written about in terms of the intrinsic and extraneous, like really made me think about that really clear coaching cycle that you
Yeah.
follow when you are coaching a teacher. And it is the absolute privilege, right, to help make a teacher be great in their classroom. I just love it, and I love being part of that. But really thinking about that environment as well. And one of the things that I really believe makes a massive difference is just having that consistency across all classrooms. Once you've got the consistency of routines and habits, it doesn't mean the teachers are robots. What they are doing is creating a really inclusive environment for all of their learners, because all of the learners are getting the same experience no matter who is in front of them. But then what it enables is that teacher to just be able to be themselves and still have their personality within their teaching. And so, yeah, it really made me think about that when I read this. And the other thing it made me think about is what effective implementation actually is. And so this year I have been doing the certification in coaching leadership with Step Lab.
Yeah.
And one of the modules and one of the bits of reading that I had to do looked at the PDIA approach, so problem-driven iterative adaptation. And I hadn't really come across that before when I was thinking about implementation, but it's definitely, Harry Fletcher Wood did a really good article on it. And it really makes me now think about kind of the process around kind of actually addressing, like, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve?
Yeah.
So not a case of, sometimes we think effective implementation, we think, oh, we're going to do this. But you've not really thought about the why that underpins that. So a lot, what I've now tried to do is like reframe things. So like, what is the problem? What am I trying to make better? And therefore, like, what do I now need to plan in terms of implementation?
Yeah.
It's
That's
definitely
cool.
switched my thinking,
Yeah.
even with things like school improvement planning, that I'm like, okay, but why is that on the school improvement plan?
Yeah.
What is the problem? Is it just that you want to do something? In which case, like, you probably need to de-implement something else, because else you're just adding in more initiatives. So yeah, it really made me think about that. But I also think your sort of implementation factors then take kind of, especially like school improvement planning, to sort of that next level, in the sense that having those kind of 6 key questions that go within the factors would really help with that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think, what you just said then is fascinating around the that new model you were just talking about then. The idea of problem first planning, I suppose you might want to call it. But one of the things I think is dangerous when we talk about implementation is this idea of, as you said, measuring success. That if success is, we want to implement a new, let's do feedback policy, the success is not there following it. The success should be, as it solved the problem
Yeah.
that started it. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And so when we think implementation, we so often just think about implementing the next new thing, don't
Like
we?
doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, there we go.
Yeah. So yeah, it really made me think about that. So when I was looking at them, I was like, oh, that's really key, 'cause it's definitely something that I feel like I've gone on about loads.
Amazing. Okay, well, we're going to end with a bang now then, because we're going to find out about Siobhan's most the embarrassing moment that comes quickest to her mind. And she chose the question.
Yeah. So embarrassing moment. So I'd been on a 3-night residential to Paris with year 6 children. You do not get much sleep. Okay. So I was very tired. Like, I mean, I'd actually gone, right. So the Thursday night before the Friday morning, I'd gone to see Lewis Capaldi in Exeter without
Nice.
realizing that I was going to have to get home from Lewis Capaldi, which is an hour away, and then get on a coach by 4 a.m. the next morning to do a 12-hour journey to Paris with like 50 year 5, 6 children. So I'd only had a few hours sleep. Each night I only had a few hours sleep. I then have you get back the Monday night quite late. I'd gone to work on the Tuesday. I'm super tired. I am hanging out, but like I'm the head teacher and there's lots of other staff that have done it. So like I'm in early, I'm ready to go. At that time in school, so Watson, who I mentioned to you earlier, he is the Marine Academy dog. He still goes to school. But we also had, like, Watson's a little Cavachon, not very big. We also had a Newfoundland that would come to school.
Wonderful.
So much bigger, right? I'm sat at a table and I'm having a conversation with people. I do not know that the dogs are both laid behind me. I'm still having the conversation. I've got up to back away and I have stepped on Little Bear, the big dog, and I've fallen over the top of him and just like landed on the floor in front of a foyer of adults. And I just didn't know what to do. So Watson has ran over because Little Bear's like right up in my face barking. Watson's ran over. He's barking at Little Bear to tell him to stop barking at me. And I'm just sprawled on the floor. And everybody looked, and you could tell people didn't know. They really wanted to laugh. They didn't know whether they could. And then they did. It was one of those things that like nobody would then let me live down, to the point on my laptop I've still got saved the CCTV video called Dog Trip that the site team then went and found on CCTV and then shared with people.
So
it's just like this sketch of me, and I'd sort of forgotten about it until on Friday, Georgie, the head teacher from Moon Primary, was talking about somebody tripping over. And then she said, oh, yeah, because obviously when that happens to people, you kind of want to laugh. And she was like, a bit like when you fell over. And then told the whole story again. Yeah. So I think that mine, like, embarrassing bit, just because playing it back and just looking at like how ridiculous. And I put it down to just being extremely tired at the time and I just floored it.
You're lucky it didn't get leaked to the Sun.
I know. Could you imagine?
You can't even stand up straight, let alone run a school. Amazing. Well, tell us a bit. Tell us a bit about how people can connect with you. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I have got X and I'm on LinkedIn. I try and post as much as I can about the things that I get up to. So one of the things that I've posted this week is about we're going to relaunch the Southwest Primary School Improvement Network, which I'm really excited to be co-leading with Joe Hicks from Diocese of Salisbury Trust. So that's one of the big ways people can get in touch from a primary perspective or school improvement perspective. But yeah, like follow me on there. People can connect with me that way.
And we've talked about maybe I'm going to get to come down and do some stuff with you at this festival.
Yeah, TED Fest, the TED Rag Trust Festival of Learning, which is our whole trust-wide professional development day in November, which is going to be really exciting, and hosted across 2 different locations, almost 2,000 members of staff involved, and loads of sessions running.
Incredible. Well, in December, if anybody wants to know how to run a large-scale festival, then they get in touch.
Yeah.
And learn some lessons. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sparing some time to talk to us.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the listeners. And I'll catch you at the next one.
Thank you so much.